During our senior year of high school, my best friend, who we'll call Grace, broke up with her boyfriend, who she had been with for several years. It was a messy breakup full of lots of tears and late nights on the phone with me trying to calm her down. It had only been a few weeks since the breakup when Grace told me she wanted to try dating someone new. I encouraged her to wait a little bit and take some time for herself. After all, she was still getting over her ex and needed time to heal. But there was no persuading her. Her mind was set that the best way to get over her ex would be to get with someone new. Grace decided to download a dating app and set up an account. Even though I don't think it was a great idea, I tried to be a good friend by helping her select the perfect photos for her profile. I even helped her come up with a witty pickup line she could send to guys she liked. She was a gorgeous girl, so it was no surprise that she matched with lots of guys right away. A couple of days after she downloaded the app, she approached me excitedly in the hallway at school. She told me she had matched with a really cute guy and chatted with him nearly all night long. She told me about the boy who I'll call James. He played soccer at one of the private high schools nearby, was on the debate team, and wanted to go to school to study to become a veterinarian after graduation. He checked all the right boxes, and I have to admit he was pretty cute if he looked like anything in his pictures. He had dark floppy hair, green eyes, and a few freckles. He was tall and lean with a cute, crooked smile. I could see why Grace was so excited about him. She was already talking about wanting to meet up with him in person, but of course I told her to be patient and get to know him first. I didn't want her to get hurt again so soon after her last breakup. As the days went by, James and Grace got to know each other better and better. They texted constantly and seemed to be hitting it off. The only thing that was strange about the whole thing was that James didn't seem to have any social media profiles. Grace and I combed the internet, but he didn't have a Facebook, Instagram, or even a Twitter page. He didn't even have a Snapchat. One day, Grace got up the nerve to ask him about it. His response was pretty vague. He just said that he didn't like to get involved in the drama that can come with social media. Grace bought the response, but I thought it was kind of weird. Everyone I knew that was my age had at least one form of social media, if not several. Then there was another red flag. Grace had asked James if he would want to FaceTime, but he claimed he dropped his phone and shattered the camera. It always seemed like he had an excuse for everything. Of course, Grace was so obsessed with him that she was able to look past every single red flag. After a few weeks of talking virtually, Grace decided she wanted to ask James to meet up for an actual date. She and I brainstormed a few ideas of places they could go, like a mini golf course, movie theater, or some type of restaurant. We agreed it should be someplace public. After all, James was still technically a stranger, and it was important for Grace to play it safe. She eventually decided that a local ice cream shop would be the perfect location for a first date since it was casual but fun. She pitched the idea to James, who seemed thrilled. They agreed to meet that Friday at 7 p.m. The night of her date, Grace came over to my house to get ready. I helped her get her hair and makeup just right, and she borrowed one of my sundresses. She was so excited about the date, but I still had my reservations about James. I just had this weird pit in my stomach that I couldn't shake. Eventually, I suggested to Grace that I come along for the date but hide in the distance. That way, I could be there for moral support in case the date didn't go well, or James just wasn't what she was expecting. I promised her he would never even know I was there. Reluctantly, she agreed. We drove in my car to the ice cream shop, since it was black with tinted windows and easily blended in. We got there early and I parked in the lot right next to the ice cream shop. There was both outdoor and indoor seating, and Grace was planning on sitting at one of the little tables outside under an umbrella. I was going to wait in the car where I would have a direct view of everything going on. She told me that if things were going well on the date, she would give me a signal by putting her hair up into a ponytail. But if things weren't going well and she wanted me to intervene, she would put her hair into a bun. We planned that if things didn't go well, I would pop out of nowhere and interrupt their date, telling her there was some sort of emergency that I needed her for. We arrived early for Grace's date, so she would have time to scope out the area. It was a very hot day with temperatures in the 90s, so Grace was the only one who had chosen to sit outside. All the other customers were enjoying their ice cream with air conditioning inside. Grace had picked her seat and was checking her phone frequently, probably to see if James had messaged her. I looked around, but I didn't see anyone who looked remotely like him. The minutes ticked by and I checked the clock on my dashboard. It was 7:05 and he was running late. Was he gonna stand Grace up? I didn't want my friend to get hurt again so soon. Just as I was thinking about how I was going to console Grace after getting her heart hurt once again, I noticed a car pull up a few spaces down from mine. Much to my amazement, I immediately recognized the boy as James from the photos. Wow, I had been so wrong about him this whole time. I owed Grace an apology for being so suspicious of him. I laughed to myself in straight relief. I watched as James approached Grace and a huge smile appeared on her face. The pair shared a brief hug before making their way inside to get their ice cream. I was scrolling through TikTok and almost didn't notice when Grace and James exited the ice cream shop a few minutes later, each of them holding large cones. They got seated under an umbrella and were chatting animatedly, clearly having a great time. About 30 minutes into the date, I watched as James finished off his ice cream. He then looked at Grace and pointed at the ice cream shop. She quickly nodded, and I caught on that he had told her he was going to use the bathroom located in the store. After he was inside, she turned around and flashed me a smile before putting her hair into a ponytail to signal that everything was going well. I giggled and gave her a thumbs up sign. Grace was looking down at her phone when all of a sudden I noticed a van pull up close to where she was sitting. She didn't seem to notice and didn't look up. Two men quickly emerged from the van, one from the driver's seat and one from the passenger seat. They approached Grace, each of them grabbing her by an arm. I could barely process what was happening. I opened my car door and ran out towards her, screaming at the top of my lungs for help. Before I could reach her, the men had shoved her into the back seat of the van. They returned to their seats and slammed the doors shut. I could hear Grace screaming hysterically inside. I sprinted towards the car as fast as I could, but it started pulling away quickly and I knew I couldn't catch up with it. Thinking fast, I grabbed my phone from my pocket and snapped a quick picture of the back of the van before it got out of sight. By this point, my screams had gotten the attention of the employees and customers inside the ice cream shop. They had come out into the patio to see what was wrong. I told them that my best friend had been kidnapped and to call 911. I was in hysterics and unable to form a coherent sentence, but one friendly lady called the police for me and explained what had happened. Two men had arrived on the shop on motorcycles and took off in the direction of the vehicle at high speed. When the police arrived on the scene, I showed one of them the photo I had managed to capture of the vehicle. The officer zoomed in, and although it was pretty grainy, he was able to read the license plate number. He got on the radio and sent a message out to every other patrol squad in the state so they would know what to look out for. The license plate number was even shared throughout the local news channels, so everyone in the city was on the lookout for the vehicle. Luckily, it didn't take long for the van to be located. One officer that had been directing traffic at a school nearby noticed the van speeding while heading north. They managed to catch up with the vehicle and called for backup. The two men were arrested, and Grace was miraculously rescued, completely uninjured. As for James, it turns out that my gut had always been right about him. While he was the same guy as pictured on the dating profile, he was being used as a decoy by two men involved in human trafficking. He had been paid to distract Grace so they could swoop in and snatch her. It's been several years since the scary incident happened, and Grace is doing fine, but I'll never doubt what my gut is telling me ever again. Can you imagine what would have happened if the police hadn't caught the van? Drop a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe. Sleep tight.